year, what the proposed revenue would be, and what alternatives are being considered. I'm grateful that the City of Santa Rosa is here with us today and appreciate their leadership. I'd also like to thank our friends at the City of Roanoke Park and City of Windsor for joining the discussion today. Of course, programs like this just don't happen. They happen because of our sustaining members. So a big shout out to all our sustaining members that are in the room. And also a big shout out to Don Mills, and I think his son is James, right? Yes, thank you for being here and recording our video for us. So with that, I am very excited to also share that we actually have a new website and a whole new customer service program. You guys should have received an email if you're a member a couple weeks ago. It is a new process in the sense that you have to log in and set up an account again compared to what our old program was. So it's pretty seamless, but if you need any help, please contact myself or Taya will help you with that. So with that, we are going to do self-introductions. Our board member, Danny Sheehan Myers, is going to help us with that. So go for it, Danny.
Good morning. Danny Sheehan with Friends of Smart.
Charlotte Rathilbeck, Exchange Bank.
Paul Young's Exchange Bank.
And really quick, if you are a guest, please hold up your business card. We do have a raffle for some wonderful beer.
Jeff O'Grady, George Peterson Insurance in Santa Rosa Vice Mayor.
We're really doing it this way. Hello, Mark Staff, Sonoma State University and Santa Rosa City Council, and we've got the whole executive team from the City of Santa Rosa here today, starting with City Manager Jason Nutt, Communications Director Misty Wood, our HR Director Dominique Blanky, CFO Scott Wagner, Fire Chief Scott Westrope, Police Chief John Regan, TPW Director Dan Hennessy, and Planning and Economic Director Dave Osborne. Thank you all. It is fair game today. And actually, I brought other guests. I brought my City Council Campaign Director, Sandy Stapp, who also happens to be my mom. And Town of Wascott Town Board Trustee, Bill Stapp, who also happens to be my dad. There it is.
Hi, I'm Bill. Ryan Long, Connective Outreach and City of Kentucky Planning Commission.
Morning Alliance, Gerard Judah, Chase Sally Tomatoes, and City Roanoke Park.
Paul Donaldson, Argonaut Constructors.
John Davis, Town of Windsor.
Good morning, Tanya Potter. I'm also City of Santa Rosa employee, but Town of Windsor Vice Mayor.
Lauren Burgess, Town of Windsor, Town Manager's Office Analyst, and Sonoma County Nursing Council Members Association Executive Director.
Good morning, Mark Soil and Materials.
Good morning, Dick Dowd, retired, past president of the Alliance.
Good morning, Nick Dexter with Newton Dexter and Super Service Plumbers.
Good morning, Greg Hurd with BKF.
Good morning, Mick Menendez, Pacific Advisors, and I have a guest, an old friend of the Business Alliance, Rod Ferranato.
Welcome.
Artie Dexter, with Newton Dexter, and Super Service Plumbers.
I was always working in retirement. Tracy Shepard, Live Oak Bank.
Ryan Kelly, your immediate past president, and I'm with WSI Smart Marketing. It's my honor to have as a guest Dan Milano from Milano Mechanical.
Carrie Chambers, Exchange Bank.
Katie Dillwood, Christopherson Builders.
Ryan Schnarchaga, President and CEO of Homewatch Caregivers.
Joe Gaffney, St. Vincent de Paul.
Rob Sandville, KLH Consulting, and I am a board member here at the Wonderful Alliance.
Lori Rodriguez, still with Burkle and Millard, CPAs and business advisors.
Chuck Root, Double Eagle Financial, and at field retirement.
Curtis Woods, People Ready Staffing.
Daniel Milano, Mechanical.
Good morning, David Brown, Adobe Associates, Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors.
Pete Leskier Engineers, and a wholly owned subsidiary of Zenitech Drones as a Service.
Rick Carlisle, BKF.
Kevin C., CPA.
I'm Kevin Zuko, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Good morning, Lisa Wicki Schaffner, North Coast Builder Exchange, and today, timely, a board member of the Sonoma County Fair. Hope to see you all there.
Good morning, I'm Wes Berry with Midstate Construction. I'm the current board president of the North Coast Builders Exchange.
Kathy Goodacre, consultant, advisor, and coach.
Gary Lentz, Loan Depot Home Mortgage.
Tony Spisman, 707 Promotions.
Steve Click, Bauer Associates, and president of Sonoma County Fire District.
Good morning, Jen Del Rosario, Sonoma County Office of Education and Schools World, Sonoma County.
Thank you. I know you can introduction.
Good morning, James Mills, Sound Ideas Advertising.
Dominican College art major over there. And today you can win some Cuvée beer. Who is at the fair this year?
Good morning, Dan Rosacci with the Round Barn Group at Morgan Stanley. I have two guests with me, Jackson Yates, another advisor at the Round Barn Group at Morgan Stanley, and John Demarest, next manager for Raymond James here in Santa Rosa.
Hi, I'm Tammy Bose. I'm the new Chief Development Officer for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Sonoma Marin.
Good morning, David De Los Santos here with TLCD Architecture.
Good morning, Jack Byrne, Navigate Inc.
Andre Moran, Belgian Race Consulting Engineer, Ed Board Member, United Way of the Wine Country.
Sean G., Belgian Race Consulting Engineers.
Good morning, Linda Bone, Summit State Bank.
Juliana Graham, EBM.
Tom Schwadron, TZS Consulting and candidate for 4th District Supervisor. And I have a guest here, Karen Weeks, who's the chair of the Santa Rosa Planning Commission.
Good morning, Eddie Eager, Sonoma County Sheriff.
Eric Owenson, Granite Construction.
Marlene Soylan, Soylan Manager.
Good morning, Janet Connor, Summit State Bank, board member, past president, and my guest this morning is Julian Mackey, the executive director of Sonoma Valley Commons and also candidate for the 1st District in Sonoma for City Council.
Francisco Warmer, Deputy Sheriff Association.
Mike Carrillo, Forsyth, Sonoma County.
Samantha Ball, Planning Consulting, and proud board member of Treasure Alliance. And of those guests as well as members, if you have questions about membership, I'm membership committee chair, as well as Ernest Bergoff, Kim O'Day, and Ryan Kelly, so any of us or any board member.
Scott Kincaid, Facility Development Company and Skate Acture.
Ernest Berghoff, Brokeragency of Berghoff Realty, and Word on
Ryan Justice Williams, Legislative Intern for the Office of Assembly Member Chris Rogers.
Good morning, Scott Alonso, Office of Assembly Member Chris Rogers.
Good morning, Al Lerma with the Vitote Food Park.
Good morning, I'm the other Ryan Williams, Petaluma City Schools trustee and work with SEIU Local 10-1.
Good morning, Jonathan So, Southeast International Realty, and Board of Directors for Transcendence Theater Company.
Michael Hyman, Transcendence Theater Company. Glad to be here.
Good morning, Ken LaFranchi, architect, and I have a guest, Rio Masha from Red Credit Union.
Jason Lee from the Rosen School District, also a Alliance board member.
Leif Christensen, Sonoma Clean Power.
Miles Horton, Sonoma Clean Power, and Santa Rosa Planning Commission.
Haley Bly, Boys and Girls Club of Sonoma Marin.
Just
I'm Devin Halliday. I'm with WSI Smart Marketing.
Good morning, Miles Hafner with Signal Science and Graphics. I brought a guest with today, Teresa Piasta, and she's launching her new endeavor, CEO and founder of 26ers AI.
Wonderful. Now hold up your cards if you're a guest. We've got two. Do we have any more guests that would like to? Any more guests? Be in the raffle. All right, thank you. Lots of heavy hitters in the room. Let's go.
Yeah, very exciting to see so many elected or folks that are working for our elected officials in our region. Any other takers on giving us a business card? All right, we have Michael Hyman. Michael? Just one short, it's Danny, not me. Okay. We need one more. And Ryan Williams. There's two of you there, right? SEIU. Awesome, well thank you. So it's time for our program. I don't think any of these folks need any introduction. We're going to go ahead and have our panelists come up. We have Mayor Mark Stapp. You want everybody at the same time? Okay, everybody come on up. We have Police Chief John Cragen, Director of Transportation and Public Works Dan Hennessy, and Chief Financial Officer Scott Wagner, all representing the City of Santa Rosa. Ready? Ready?
Is there one more mic? There we go. Connie, thank you very much. And Business Alliance, we're back. Thank you for having us back. It was about a year ago today, it was Mayor Gerard Giudice from Winter Park, and it was Mayor Rosa Reynosa from Windsor. And we were here giving a thinly veiled preamble to what we're doing today. This group stays informed, so I'm going to guess that everybody here has been tracking this slow-moving story for a few years now. The first time you heard about it with Santa Rosa was back in, 2 years ago today. We had the EE and FF business tax measure, as well as an increase in transportation or transiency occupancy tax. And this group was very helpful in getting those across the line through gritted teeth, understood. But that was when people started taking a deep dive into what the budget situation in Santa Rosa was. And regularly, over the past 2 years, we've been coming back with updates and meeting with community groups, making sure that everybody's on the same page. So the first thing we'd like to underline before we get into it is that this has been a multi-year process. This isn't the case where any of our cities are surprising our residents or surprising the community with sudden budget issues. This has been a multi-year process. For the city of Santa Rosa, we've gone through 3 years of cuts. We've cut about 10% of our general fund, that's $25 million. We've got 82 positions from the city. We are now back at staffing levels that are equivalent to those that we had coming out of the Great Recession. Our public safety staffing levels, police and fire, they're roughly 1990s levels. And we'll go into more detail. But that's one aspect of our context that we want to make crystal clear, that this has been a multi-year process. Like every business in our community, we've taken deep cuts. It is hard to cut 10% from a city general fund, especially when, if you think about it, at the time that we started this, we were still recovering from the Great Recession. Think about the hits that our area has taken since 2008. We had the Great Recession, we had 3 years of fires, we had the floods, we had the pandemic, we had 7 years of population decline that's only just started to bottom out, and we all felt it. Every time that we do one of these presentations, and we've been out repeatedly over the course of the last 12 months, meeting with groups, you sense the fatigue. And for all the residents who've been here, especially over the last 10 years, again with the fires, the pandemics, there's that fatigue of, oh my gosh, what's next? And now the cities want to tax us, right? Like that's the mood. But take a second and consider how different we are now from 2017, or from 2015. You go back 10 years, we hadn't even reunified Courthouse Square yet in Santa Rosa. Think about the businesses that have come here. How different is Montgomery Village now than it was 10 years ago? How different is the airport now than it was 10 years ago? How different is Railroad Square, Sebastopol Avenue? Al, thank you for being here today. Al can talk. There are different parts of our city that are completely transformed. We are not the same Santa Rosa, nor is it the same Winter Park or the same Windsor, right? We are different cities, but for those of us who've been here, it's hard to keep that in mind. So as we're going through the conversation today, just think about the improvements that have been made. Just in the last 2 years, the city of Santa Rosa, just us, we put out $150 million in capital projects. New bridges, new fire stations, right? So there is a lot of good momentum. We want to keep that going. So with that, let's get right into it. And I do promise, I know this group, we want to get to Q&A. We're going to get to Q&A in half an hour. We're going to keep our answers short. We're going to get to our answer, or get to the audience. So, first question: City Manager Nutt, how did we get here? Why are we here again? And Roner Park and Windsor, I'm coming your way. But kick us off.
Well, that's a long story, right? And I'm going to get done in a half an hour, but I'm going to let others talk. We've been, as the mayor mentioned, we've been working for the last several years trying to figure out how we're going to create and achieve some type of financial stability, and we've taken a lot of different steps. We've looked internally within our organization. We've made some dramatic and difficult cuts to our staffing, to our services, and we've worked with voters to try to increase revenue in a couple of specific and strategic areas. We've identified revenue sources internally, like through fee structures, to try to modernize and get to a place that we're consistent with our other communities in Sonoma County. And so those steps that we've taken have really started to create the baseline. We weren't sure what this upcoming next step was going to be, and so we spent some time looking at different options, different measures, different revenue components. We looked at how additional cuts and trimming and service reductions could also go into play to help establish that financial stability. Through the course of the last 3 years, we learned a lot of things. We learned that public safety services really is a critical component of the service that we provide. And so we've done what we can to minimize and limit the type of impacts that we've had to those two departments and the services that they support our community with. We're kind of at a point where all of the rest of the organization has really taken the brunt of the changes and adjustments within our team, which has had an impact on those services that we're providing. I love the fact that you all gave a great applause to Gabe. Gabe's been killing it, and his team in the Planning and Economic Development Department in the face of fairly significant cuts, as you all have seen. They have less people in that organization, and they are still striving every single day to turn out the same number, and actually, he could tell you almost 3 times as many permits as we had a decade ago, if not more, with less people. And they're doing a really good job of it. But that's indicative of most of our general fund-oriented departments that have been the recipient of some adjustments and changes in our budget over the last 3 years. And so we have looked at some other options to try to increase revenues, reduce expenditures, and I'm going to turn this over to our CFO, Scott Wagner. He's really going to highlight for you some of the critical components that we put in place that helped us minimize some of the challenges that we may see moving forward, and why we feel confident that some of the activities that we're looking for in the next 12 months are really going to set us on the right path. I did want to make just one correction. Tani mentioned that our sales tax could increase to 11%. Actually, we increased to 10.5%. 10.5% is consistent with other cities and communities within Sonoma County. It does not go higher than that. That would be where the cap would continue to remain if we're successful with any measure coming forward, or as the mayor will talk further about. But I just wanted to correct that as we moved into this next part of the discussion. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to CFO Wagner. He's going to give you a little bit more detail about some of the cool things that we've done and the innovative approaches that we've got in place today.
Thank you, Jason. I'll be brief, but I'm going to underline some of the key components that both the mayor and the city manager just brought up. We haven't been hard to find.
as the mayor mentioned, we've been out in the community having these conversations, and the first question we always get is, why isn't the city just tightening its belt, sharpening its pencil? Aren't you making cuts? Aren't you just doing things smarter? And we have. As a community member, someone who also lives here for a very long time, that's how I approach these things. We're looking at an agency is, are you coming to us first, asking for more sales tax or whatever that is, prior to making cuts? We've made the cuts. We've cut 82 positions out of our general fund. We have 707 employees in our general fund. At the bottom of the Great Recession, we had 705. We are at a Great Recession level of staffing within our general fund right now. The second biggest economic crisis in the history of America, that is where we are today at the same level of staffing. That being said, I think it's important to understand for the community that we haven't seen the impact to services yet that we were seeing at that moment. We have not browned out a fire station. We have not browned the grass in our parks. We have not put fences around parks. We have not made dramatic cuts to public safety through the council and through senior leadership at the city. Those cuts have come last. Unfortunately, though, that is the conversation we're having. Again, to the mayor's point, this is the 4th year of this process that we're looking at, not the first. These very difficult conversations that we're having really, again, is come back to the community and say, what is the level of funding that we need to move forward to maintain this level of service that's so critical to the community? We've done things smarter. I think in all of these conversations, especially California, we should always bring up the naughtiest word possible, and that is pensions. So at the city of Santa Rosa, this last year, we implemented a very innovative strategy towards pensions. That strategy is going to save taxpayers $28 million over the next 5 years. It's really complex. I'm gonna leave the actuary talk out of the talk at 8 a.m. in the morning. But big picture, if you really boil it down, it's just like refinancing a credit card. It's like we had 100 different credit cards with all different balances on it, all different interests, and we boiled it down into one payment. That option was available to every CalPERS agency in the state over the last year. There is one that implemented it, and that is the city of Santa Rosa. We have done things smarter. We have made things more efficient. We get comments and feedback of, you have too much administration. We are at the lowest point of administrative funding in the history of the city. We're at 11%. Frankly, it's less than that because I'm also the CFO of Santa Rosa Water, right? I'm not just the general fund CFO. It's actually much less than that. We are very efficient. That is the lowest level that I can find ever. Last part of doing things more efficient, and we get feedback of, we want public safety. That is what we want as a community. That is what we have delivered. That is where we have focused our funding. I'll say this very bluntly. We don't even, if you look at our organizational structure, we don't have a rec and parks department anymore. Of a city of almost 200,000 people, that is unheard of. We are doing more with less in the existing departments we have. That is an example. We've cut 2 total departments, communications along with rec and parks. We have done everything we can as stewards of this city, again, to not have this conversation around sales tax, which is challenging and difficult, not to have it first, but to have it when it's appropriate. And frankly, now is the appropriate time to have it.
Thank you, CFO Wagner. All right, let's keep attention on the fact that this is really a statewide story and certainly a countywide story. Vice Mayor Potter, who also works for SRPD, thank you very much for your service. So in 60 seconds, I'm gonna go to you and I'm gonna go to Gerard. In 60 seconds, talk about what's similar, what's different. Where's Windsor?
Great, thank you so much. So exactly what City Manager and CFO said, we have done the same things in Windsor. We've made 10% cuts to our general fund. We've approved an economic development plan to really work out trying to bring in revenues to the town of Windsor. And the town of Windsor is a little bit different than the other cities in Sonoma County in that we have never had a tax measure in the history of the town of Windsor. So we have had the ability to balance our budget for years and years, but it has come to the point where revenues do not outweigh the costs that it takes to run a city. And so despite all the cuts that we've made and prioritizing building our revenues, we still don't have that. And so we are going to the voters and we are asking for a sales tax measure. We looked at all different types of measures. We really didn't want to just tax businesses or raise TOT tax. We really wanted to try to spread it out to everyone and ask the town to step forward and have a sales tax measure so that we can bring our revenues up. We've deferred maintenance. We've deferred $8 million worth of maintenance to our roads and our infrastructure just because it's the same across the board. So costs are high and revenues don't meet that. Even though our revenues have been great and have been steady, but at 4% year over year, but it doesn't meet the cost that it takes to run a city. We've had the same thing. Public safety is our #1 concern, and we believe that keeping a safe town in Windsor is what's going to keep our businesses running. And so if we let that slide, then our businesses aren't going to be able to be successful in Windsor.
Perfect, thank you, Tanya. All right, I'm gonna go over to Gerard Giudice, and I want to thank Gerard. What Tanya just mentioned revenues. For the last 3 years, we've also been revenue hunting, right? It hasn't all been taxation. I want to commend Gerard and Lauren for their work with the county, because the reason that $4.5 million of in-response funding is off the general fund for the city is because of Gerard and because of Lauren and because of the work with the county. So thank you very much. All right, you got to keep this short. Keep it brief, Gerard.
I'm sorry about what you're about to hear. So it's a tale of three cities. I mean, same deal in Roanoke Park, right? 242 employees, 18 frozen positions, 5 terminated positions, mandatory 10% cuts across all departments, pretty much going to zero-based budgeting. If you want something in the city of Roanoke Park, you got to go through the city manager at this point, right? And so we're in the same predicament. And why a sales tax measure? Well, for a number of reasons, but if I'm sent into a restaurant to correct the food cost, I certainly don't go after the rack of lamb that I'm selling 5 of a week. I go for the Caesar salad, right? Local jurisdictions get their biggest percentage of sales tax, revenue from sales tax, then it's property tax, and then it's TOT tax. Well, all of those are either flat or down and expenses go up. In the city of Roanoke Park, our health care went up 12.7% last year. 12.7%, what does that mean? $800,000 to the bottom line, general fund hit. Oh, what about the casino money? Sure, $13.3 million on an annual basis. The first 1.3 goes to the foundation. The next 5 go to direct mitigation JPAs like Wolford Avenue, etc. And then the last 7, we have some discretion with the permission of the tribe. You know, I was talking to Assemblymember Chris Rogers last night, and we were talking through this, and I think and I won't speak for the Assembly member, but what we want to convey is take a look at what those alternative budgets look like, right? And it's going to be some choices that you are not going to find palatable. It's going to affect public safety. It's going to affect public works. It's going to affect your property values, right? Less safe communities. And so this alliance and this community has come together on a number of initiatives, whether it's the SMART initiative, whether it's Measure J. This organization was founded on building bridges. We need all of you to support this initiative and realize that when the guy at the top turns off the faucet, there's some structural issues that are trickling down into the local jurisdictions. I can tell you in the transportation space, it's insane. And so I guess that's enough for right now without selling it. Did I do good? Did I get the $100?
Yes, without selling it. Let's pause on that point for a second, because I should have mentioned at the beginning that as city employees, we are here to educate, not to advocate. So, but thankfully we have Gerard here, as we're doing our education. All right, so with that caveat out of the way, now you've heard a bit from all 3 cities. Yes, we're cutting, we're looking at the bottom line, sharpening pencils, yada, yada, yada. But for real folks, do we think we're going to tax our way to prosperity? Have we given any thought to economic development? Vice Mayor Jeff O'Krepke, who's also the chair of our economic development subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's 2 sides to this, right? There's expense and then there's revenue. And from the economic development perspective, in my time on council, as CFO Wagner pointed out, for 4 years we've been making cuts on the expense side, but we haven't slept on the revenue side. So we're doing some exciting things. We are instituting downtowns, let's start there. We're instituting an entertainment district. For those of you that don't know what that is, sometimes it's called a designated outdoor refreshment area. It's similar to the river walks you see in like Savannah or Tampa or the Power and Light in Kansas City, where if you want to go on the courthouse square and watch a movie or watch the concerts that are going on, you could walk into La Rosa and get a margarita and walk out and enjoy it. Or you could go over to Osceolas and get a Cuvert and walk out and enjoy it because they may not be serving what you want to drink there. We're doing things like in Railroad Square, we are working with Sonoma wine growers and the Chamber and the Railroad Square Association to rethink how we use the Welcome Center at SMART. Are we using it the ways that we want to? Are we promoting our area the way we want to? So we're re-envisioning how we do that. From the fun thing about economic development is it encompasses everything, right? So if you're trying to promote your area for business, you have to do a lot of things. It's going to be housing, so we've streamlined permitting. We are undertaking many initiatives to make it cheaper and easier for California to build in our downtown and the rest of the city. We are actually being proactive. We traveled to an event in the last 2 years called ICSC in Las Vegas, which is basically a commercial real estate convention where they have commercial real estate brokers, commercial real estate owners, and tenants. But by tenants, it's commercial retail. So everything from like a Raising Cane's to 7-Eleven or something like that. And we reach out and we go to them, one, trying to recruit and saying, hey, here's our portfolio of buildings that are available within our community that you can move into. And two, to build rapport. Because Sonoma County, Santa Rosa, for the longest time had this business unfriendly reputation. We're trying to overturn that. And basically what we want to communicate is, hey, if you run into an issue, don't just throw your hands up and say we're done. Come talk to us. We have a get to yes attitude in the city. Gabe and his team are really, really important when it comes to that, because we may not be able to give you 100% of what you want, but we could probably get to like 95% or 100% in creative ways. So don't just throw your hands and say, oh, hey, we can't do this because we saw something in the Press Democrat or online. So we're doing a lot of things. The mayor mentioned the success of Montgomery Village, Southwest and Delta coming to the airport. And we're even doing things when it comes to transit, like the mascots study, which is making it easier for people to time their bus routes to get to and from where they want to go. So it takes about an hour less to get from Cloverdale to downtown Santa Rosa now, which is really important for our economic development. There's plenty of other things going on, but those are just some of the things that we've been doing.
Perfect, thank you. And speaking of us changing our reputation, is Lori Rooney from North Bay Business House? Oh, that's too bad. I was going to put her on the spot. So, did everybody notice which city was voted the most business-friendly city in Sonoma County this week in North Bay Biz by business owners? I'm sure Roner Park and Windsor noticed. Spoiler, for the second year in a row, it's Santa Rosa. The businesses voted Santa Rosa as the most business-friendly city. Thank you. Thank you. Again, to what's changed over the past 10 years, we were not winning that award in 10 years ago. It was another city in the county, but no longer, 2 years in a row. All right, let's switch gears. Now, I am conscious of time because we want to get to Q&A. We know there are people who have thoughts in this room. Let's switch our attention to public safety. And so we've got Chief Cregan and we got Chief Westrope here. I'm going to give you guys 60 seconds apiece. All right, but here's what I want to hear. Remind our residents, remind the county of how good our departments are, right? When we're talking about supporting public safety, we're not talking about supporting some mid-level teams here, right? We're talking about we're talking about police departments and fire departments that the North Bay relies on. We are the North Bay leaders. We are supporting excellence when we are supporting our teams here. If you could underline that, Chief Cregan, to start, and then just talk a little bit about some of the funding challenges, what that means for the departments.
Absolutely, and we've talked about before with this group about some of the tremendous changes we've seen in the city of Santa Rosa. One of those is the work that we've done with sideshows, and that was something that was absolutely an epidemic across our county. Santa Rosa led the way with how we could come together as a county to be able to reduce those, and you're not seeing those sideshows. What we're also really focused on is violence reduction across our city. Our city is growing. Last year we had over 179,000 calls for service that came into our 911 dispatch center that our officers, our civilian staff members are responding to. But we've already made, as you've heard the theme today, about some of the significant cuts. In 2006, since 2006, we've cut 32 employees from the city of Santa Rosa, 15 sworn police officers, and 17 civilians. And one of the numbers that I talk about this is astounding to me. In 1999, we had 183 sworn officers in Santa Rosa. Today we have 175. So we have 8 less officers than we did in 1999. Our population has grown by almost 40,000 people since 1999. So it's difficult for the men and women of the police department to be able to go out there and respond to the 179,000 calls for service as this job has gotten more and more complex with the resources that we have. So, but what I'm really proud of is the work that they are doing of keeping Santa Rosa safe. We're seeing tremendous impacts with public safety, whether it be with our gangs, whether it be with guns on our streets. Last year, our officers took 321 illegal guns off the streets of Santa Rosa. This year, just through June, they've already taken 301. So we're gonna go over 500 illegal firearms that they're taking off the streets. But that takes with the resources. Really proud of the work we're doing. I'll turn it over to Chief Westrop for the fire effects.
Chief Westrop, thank you, Chief Cregan.
Thank you and good morning. Just really quick for context as we get deeper into this conversation. The Santa Rosa Fire Department, if you don't know, is comprised of 10 fire stations strategically located throughout the city. We operate 10 advanced life support fire engines and 2 advanced life support ladder trucks. That's our core service. And that has been the service that we provided out of the general fund of KESAP since 2007. The only changes we made to that have been through Measure H, where we've added a heavy rescue and an ALS squad. So our core services really haven't changed, and we have not grown commensurate with the community. With the population, the density, and the threat matrix that we've all seen change, we continue to try to grow, but we just keep getting stymied by these budget restrictions. In the last 2 years, we've cut $4.5 million out of our general fund obligation. We've lost 29 positions, and those positions are throughout the organization, from administration to emergency management and suppression and prevention. What I want to highlight is we've made those cuts, as everybody here has, with the very deliberate intention of not impacting the end user core service. So you don't feel that on the streets. When you call 911, somebody still shows up, but we've lost a lot of redundancy. We've lost deputy chiefs, deputy emergency managers, admin support, and the firefighter positions that we've lost were grant funded. We did not continue that grant funding. So the story is that Santa Rosa Fire needs to continue to grow to meet the needs of the community. We're doing everything we can to do that, but we're having to use outside sources. So from the general fund perspective, and I think the point we're all trying to make, you've heard, is that our current general fund staffing levels are at 2007 levels, and they have not changed. And you can all imagine, Chief talked about the growth in population, but you also have seen the change in the wildfire landscape and all the different threats that we face on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much. All right, let's leave public safety behind. We're going to popcorn over to infrastructure. We're going to go to Dan Hennessy, TPW Director. All right, we talked earlier about some of the incredibly good things that we have going on right now. If you could take a few minutes, 2 minutes, to discuss both how much we are building, how much work there is being done by the department, but then also answer the question about why is the pothole in front of my house not fixed? What's wrong with my neighborhood street? Handle that one.
All right, let's start with the good news first. As the mayor mentioned, we have, over the last 18 months or so, nearly $200 million of projects either completed or in construction. A lot of this stuff is a long time coming, from the Hearn Avenue interchange to the bicycle pedestrian overcrossing, 2 fire stations in progress, a new library, and then a lot of street repaving throughout the community. One of the things that I was asked to do when I started in this position a couple years ago was to revisit our capital improvement program and really focus on the needs of the community, making sure that everybody was on the same page about what we wanted. And it was consistent with what you've heard other department heads talk about. We wanted safety and we wanted maintenance of our infrastructure. So we've really refocused our capital improvement funds around repaving streets. You're seeing that now in terms of projects that are ongoing on Calistoga Road, on Hopper Avenue, recent projects on West College and Dutton, and more repaving to come early next year in the entire Oakmont community, on Bicentennial, on Fountain Grove, and a number of other streets. You'll also have a neighborhood paving project in Bennett Valley starting later this month. Where our challenges lie is that all of those decisions are discretionary right now. We are making that through capital improvement funds, whether that is tax measures or grants. Right now, the general fund does not contribute to maintaining our streets in any meaningful way. Right now, it is entirely to 2 pothole crews that we have on our team, chasing 500 miles of streets that have had underinvestment for decades. So we're playing catch up, we're prioritizing the most important corridors in the city, and it's very frustrating to have to give that response to people that we know your street is bad and we cannot get to it based on our current funding sources. We have to find other ways to be able to do this, and I think everybody's attention is there, that we have made some real efforts to communicate that to people, that we have to focus on the collectors and arterials. For as many complaints as I get about residential streets, we would get a lot more if we let the core infrastructure of the city connecting people into and out of town fail at levels that look like some of the residential streets that haven't had the attention that they deserve.
Thank you very much. All right, we're gonna do one last question for each of the cities, and it's gonna be a multi-part question. The question is, what precisely is the sales tax measure? How much are you going out for? How much would it generate? And how much does how would it be allocated within the city? And how will the public know that that money is not being misused on peripheral projects, as opposed to basic services, which is what we're talking about here? I'm going to start out with City Manager Nutt. So just go through the specifics of the ballot measure so that everybody knows very briefly, and then how are we allocating that money? Is it going to be spent on new kind of projects that aren't needed? Where are those funds going?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. What the measure that we're looking at right now is to reauthorize the existing Measure Q sales tax. As you might remember, in 2020, voters in the city of Santa Rosa approved a half-cent sales tax measure called Measure Q. That measure is set to expire in 2031. What we're asking voters at this point is to reauthorize that measure at a 1 cent rate until ended by voters. That is an opportunity for us to create the stability within our financial infrastructure to address our long-term financial challenges. There's a lot within a 10.5 cent sales tax within the city. 8 of those measures are countywide. We have 2 within the city. We don't get the receipt and the benefit of all funds generated from the city of Santa Rosa. They don't stay in Santa Rosa. And so the concept of this current proposal, this current initiative, is to create that baseline infrastructure for Santa Rosans in Santa Rosa that stays in Santa Rosa. It creates that real primary funding source so that basic infrastructure, like you've heard from the chiefs, from Director Hennessy, from Director Osborne, those are areas that we need that primary funding source in order to sustain operations today and into the future. I use the word sustain. We also use the word maintain. The concept here is the financial challenges that we have today, this measure would not create this super funded program. It wouldn't create a mechanism where we're going on a spending spree and you're going to see lots of shiny new things within the city. This is an opportunity for us to create stability. It's an opportunity for us to begin thinking about what future operations and service might look like within the city of Santa Rosa. We don't want to be consistent with the way we've always done it. We want to improve, get better, but in order to start that mechanism, we have to have that baseline financial support to make this a positive glide plane moving upward toward our fiscal stability. So that is our plan, if successful, so that we can ensure that we're getting to all these things that you heard the department heads within the city talk about, not just suffering from, but needing to fill holes, fill gaps, and to see a better future for our community members.
Thank you. Maintaining, not expanding. Those are the words today. All right, Tanya, what's going on in Windsor?
Again, it's the exact same thing. Everything that City Manager Nutt just said as far as bringing in a baseline stability for our town. We currently have a $4 million structural deficit. We're asking Measure I is a 1% sales tax measure, which will bring in approximately $5.4 million per year. So it really is to shore up that deficit and to tackle some of our deferred maintenance that we have. We have $8 million just from our last budget cycle in deferred maintenance. And so we want to prioritize what we've heard from our community, which is public safety infrastructure, and services to our town. And so those are the things that we are going to prioritize. We also built into our tax measures an oversight committee. And so that oversight committee is going to be looking at the way that we are spending those tax dollars and ensuring that we are spending them the way that the community has asked us to spend them. So it really is to bring in, shore up, have this baseline of revenue for our town so that we can continue to run and provide the excellent services that the town of Windsor provides now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, Gerard, Warner Park. I'm assuming it's a similar story?
0.5% sales tax generating $5.5 million. Our structural deficit right now is at 6.7. That'll take care of most of it. Next month, luckily, we will receive an application from Center Cal to develop the downtown. We're very excited about that. Those two measures in the next few years will put Roanoke Park back on track. With regards to what we're going to spend the money on, $40 million in deferred building maintenance, right? Prime example, paving the streets, propping up public safety. We did a compensation study with our employees. We're underpaid. So, I mean, any number of opportunities there, but not buying new shiny things, propping up what is currently failing. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, our time is 20 after 8, and to show that the city of Santa Rosa and Windsor Park live up to our word, we're going to get to Q&A, which is what everybody wants every month here at the Business Alliance. So we have other questions that we are prepared to answer, that we're looking forward to answering, and we are just assuming that this crowd is going to throw them our way. So be blunt. Keep in mind that this crew that you're seeing here and our friends over here, we've heard it all. We've been in front of ECA, we've been in front of the Chamber, we've been in front of the GOP, we've been in front of every group in the county, right? So do not hold back. Who would like to kick us off? Mick? We were expecting as much, Mick. All right. Be bold.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for the cuts that you've made, all the cities. I mean, it's obviously a difficult job. But what I didn't hear was who's responsible for tracking the effectiveness of all the monies we're giving to housing, homelessness, all the effectiveness of our dollars, because we've all read about the abuses taking place on a federal level, in California. Who's keeping track for us in Santa Rosa or Sonoma County? That's my question.
I'll take that. CFO Wagner, you want to field that one?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And homelessness is a good bet to be one of the first questions in this area. I'll give some context. When we look at the overall structure of our budget and how much we're spending on homelessness, it's around $4 million a year, about $4.5 million a year out of a $250 million budget. The vast majority of that $4.5 million, practically all of it, is going towards keeping Sam Jones Hall, the homeless center, open. Sometimes some difficult conversations say, well, should we have that open? That's not a question for me, but what I can tell you for sure, if we were to close it, we would spend more money in litigation than it is to keep it open. We'd get sued real quick. So I hear you around frustration around other agencies that go up from us around how they are spending homeless money. We really need to be engaged as a community, putting pressure on the state, putting pressure on our partners to make sure that the areas where they've given revenue that it's getting spent in the most effective ways. I will say from Santa Rosa's perspective, do I find our spending on homelessness effective? Absolutely. We look at overall our last census of homelessness, we have a 33% decrease in homelessness as of the last study. That's results. And I came from business prior to government, I like results. They are there. Is it there at the level we would like to see as a community of much, much less? No. I think that's still work to be done. But from an overall funding perspective, I think I will be blunt and say that decreasing our funding towards putting it into these areas, regardless of effectiveness, is going to be a real challenge. We don't want to see those gains in these important areas go the wrong way, and that's what we're fearful of our overall budget mix moving forward.
Hey everybody, Ryan Kelly from WSI. I will say I sit on the City of Roanoke Park's Managers Advisory Council, and I know behind the scenes how much work is going into each of the cities fixing and figuring out their budgets, so thank you guys for all your hard work. My question, not surprisingly, is about artificial intelligence. Okay, I know as an organization that does marketing, we've adopted artificial intelligence to become more efficient and deliver better services and better performance to our clients. And I see colleges and other organizations that are purposely blocking and trying to keep AI out of classrooms and out of their work environments. However, I see the efficiencies and the gains and the benefits that come from it. As much as there is danger, there is benefit, and as much benefit, there is danger. I'm curious, does the county or does the city have a plan around adopting or using AI as a roadmap within the different divisions of the city to try to become more efficient or do things that maybe we can't do ourselves?
Ryan, thank you. All right, first I'm going to throw that to Chief Cregan, who might want to say a few words about flock cameras and how that has shored up public safety, and then also very, very briefly to Jason Nutt for how we're using AI in our city attorney's office. Chief Cregan, 60 seconds.
Yeah, we're using AI in so many things. And one thing is all of our officers wear a body-worn camera. So we were the first and led the way here in Sonoma County and are part of a statewide project with one of our lieutenants. We're now taking where it watches the video of the officer and transcribes that into a report. And the officer still has to go through, make some changes, but that's one of the areas, and actually our lieutenant's going to be speaking at a conference just in a couple of weeks on that topic. Another thing is the flock cameras. I believe strongly that, as we've seen with losing 32 staff members from the police department, we have to use technology to be able to police effectively across the city of Santa Rosa. The flock cameras can be a divisive topic, quite honestly. It's something that I stand firmly behind. We're actually going to be having a community meeting on September 17th at 6 p.m. at our utility field office. We'll be putting out a lot on social media. We have to be able to use those tools to be able to drive down violence in our community, to drive down some of the gang violence we've seen for decades in Sonoma County and here in Santa Rosa, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing and embracing the AI technology for our teams to be more effective and efficient with the resources that we have.
And I'll just chime in and say that from a technology perspective, the city of Santa Rosa, this is an area of focus for us. There are technologies out there that will further enhance and make our jobs easier, quicker, and more responsive to the public, given the lower staffing levels. We have, since the beginning of the Great Recession, technology is one of those nice-to-haves, and therefore we didn't do a lot of new implementations during the course of the last 15 years. Our hope is, especially given this concept of maintain and sustain, that we find a way of incorporating new technologies such as AI, such as other off-the-shelf type of systems that can make our jobs a little bit more responsive to the community and our customer needs, that we can get those put in place. I will just say we did just adopt an AI policy within the city, so we are starting to ramp up in that sense. You heard Chief Cregan talk about a program that he's actively using. We just authorized the purchase of AI software for our attorney's office so that they can be more expeditious in providing departments with opinions and research, which is going to be huge. It's going to reduce the amount of administrative support that we have there. Actually, that was wrong. I'm sorry to take that back. It will reduce the amount of time that administrative support has to take in order to support the attorneys in getting the information back there. And then there are other areas that we're starting to look at. I know you all love the My Santa Rosa app. Everybody thinks it's awesome and wonderful. We are looking at trying to renovate that, and AI is one of the tools that the vendor that we're using is trying to incorporate so that it makes the user experience a little bit easier, that the AI component of that can actually help identify for you the right terminology needed in order to make that service request go through our system faster and easier. So thank you very much for that. It is an area we're absolutely going to be focusing in on, trying to enhance our technology.
Thank you. All right. Next question.
Okay, are we experiencing sales tax leakage, as economists love all the stuff that we ought to be capturing, and but we're not? So my wife looked up for me this morning. We have a state law. The sales tax is supposed to come back to the delivery address, but as my colleague David Brown points out to me, the distribution center is over in Napa. So is Napa stealing our sales tax receipts? So what do we do about that? How about a franchise fee on these damn delivery trucks that are beating up our roads? Huh? How about that one, Mr. Public Works?
All right, a lot to unpack there, and almost everybody from the city wanted to jump on that question. And I think actually, I think we have Scott Alonso from Chris Rogers' office. We'll cut back to Scott here in a second too, because Chris Rogers has been pretty active. All right, who wants to handle the online? All right, Mr. Krupke, take it quick. You got 60 seconds. I'm going to Scott.
So there's a lot that goes into it with a Wayfair decision, blah, 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 blah. But what it comes down to is that the state law in the state of California is that for online purchases where the transaction takes place is where it leaves the warehouse. So if you order a laptop from Santa Rosa on Amazon and you have it delivered to Santa Rosa, it leaves American Canyon or Richmond Fulfillment Center. That's where the taxes are collected. And it's not our taxes, it's their local taxes. So there's a 1/4 cent sales tax for public safety being proposed in American Canyon. So just so you know, when you buy something online from Amazon, you're paying for the cars, the training, and the employees in American Canyon. That's how it works. It's a state law, and that's why the mayor mentioned Scott Alonso. What it basically comes down to is that a lot of state legislators are scared to take this on because they have both sides of the coin, right? They have municipalities that are being affected by not having fulfillment centers, and they have some that are being affected because they do. And so it becomes a Sophie's choice of who do I piss off?
Perfect. And since online sales are about 20% purchases, we're losing out on about 20% of our sales tax. Scott Alonso, I'm putting you on the spot, but is Chris Rogers active at all in this space? Has he been aggressively lobbying on behalf of the city? And I think the answer is yes. Here you go.
Thanks, Mayor, staff, really appreciate it. I do want to say I am a little disappointed in Mark because he didn't promote the county fair. Thank you, Lisa, for promoting the county fair. Mark is supposed to do that, but that's okay. So yes, Senator Rogers has talked to multiple folks throughout the district. We have 5 counties throughout 82, but he's been talking to Councilmember Krupke and Mayor staff about this issue. Cal Cities has been looking at it as well from a statewide perspective, and so it is on our list of potential bill ideas for 2027. So we are interested in it and want to keep hearing from our local partners about how it's impacting all of you.
Put you on the spot. All right, next question. Scott will come back.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing about all you've been doing with a lot of determination, creativity, looking at costs instead of just going on autopilot. But we've got a tough question, I think. Pensions and healthcare costs. Have those costs gotten the same attention, the same determination, creativity, and looking at competitive cost structures as other spending?
Thank you. We'll go to our pension reform superstar, who's in the media nonstop these days. Scott Wagner, how much do we save? Thank you for saving that much on behalf of the city. Talk a little bit about our liabilities in that area.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And we took big swings in this area as a city over the last year. So big that unfortunately I had to go on live TV and get interviewed by Heather Holmes about our pension reform. I looked even worse on live TV than I did this morning. But the big picture is, as a local official, you're not really looking at me on TV, but I was proud of what we did. We are saving taxpayers $28 million over the next 5 years with our pension reform. I mentioned earlier, we were the only agency in the entire state to take advantage of a window that was presented for us by CalPERS to lower our costs. And here's the best part. We're not just saving $28 million over the next 5 years, we're gonna pay off our debt quicker, 6 years earlier. This is just good finance. These are often policies that are hard to get across the finish line, regardless of how smart they are, unless you have an engaged council that wants to get in the weeds of these subjects, and we have. Right now we have a rare moment, excuse me, I almost slipped there. We have a great moment with our current council where they are engaged with us financially to move these areas forward. So thank you to them. Thank you, Jeff.
And thank you, CFO Wagner. All right, Scott, what do you have?
A couple of comments and questions. Mick alluded to the who's accountable, so I think that the importance of who's accountable is those sitting at the dais. So when we make our votes for those representing us in the city, of course, our future leaders can make changes to general fund priorities, and so we need to keep focused on business-friendly, economic-driven leaders in our cities. So that's a comment. Question is, structurally, can you go over how the sales tax measure works? Voters decide, what's the criteria on amount of votes necessary to achieve? And then secondarily, I didn't hear it mentioned, so if I missed it, please excuse me, but the structural, so you got potential 10.5%, how much of that percentage does the city keep percentage-wise? Because I think that's eye-opening.
Thank you very much. And the answer to that is 100% of this tax. City Manager Nutt, did you want to take a swing at that just very quickly?
Yeah, thank you. So the question is who's accountable, and quite frankly, City Council makes final decisions on all budgets on an annual basis, but the department heads and the staff are really accountable to providing the level of budget reform that we need on an annual basis in order to ensure that we're passing a structurally sound budget. And so we will be coming on a regular basis throughout the course of the year to ensure that we're on the right track. To give you an example, over the last year, we actually invited a series of community members through the City Manager's Budget Working Group. And Karen Weeks, thank you for serving on that during the course of the last year. And we actually bounced a number of ideas off of them, thoughts. We got critical feedback and ideas from that group that helped guide some of the decisions that we brought to council for them to make on our behalf. And it is that level of accountability, that's our intention to move forward. CFO Wagner can go into more detail about, from a structural perspective, what the GFOA says about on our budget management and how we're doing things. We've been award winners. It's our intent to continue that path. We're going to be looking at ways that we can inform the public as to how positively we're investing these funds. This is a total of $46 million in a 1 cent sales tax. The current half cent provides half of that, obviously $23 million. So it's an increase of $23 million into the revenue stream. We currently are facing about a $14 million structural deficit. That increases as we look at the potential drop-off of the current measure. And expenses, as you heard from the Vice Mayor Windsor, the expenses continue to outpace the revenue increases over the course of time. And so, as we said, this is a fill and a maintain, and not necessarily a concept of increase. And so hopefully, Scott, that answered the question about who's responsible, what our whole is, and how we think we're going to find a way into the future.
Thank you, City Manager Nutt. I'm going to follow up quickly. I misunderstood Scott's question. All right, so Scott Wagner, very quickly, popcorn questions here. What percentage of the current 10.25 cent sales tax, what percentage of that comes to the city?
1.75%. So we are last when it comes to sales tax revenue, our most important revenue source. Of the 10 cents, we keep 1 cent and 3/4. That's it. Of the additional revenue that's going to come in, we will keep 100%. Again, to keep with the technical, every dollar that comes in from the new sales tax has to legally be spent in Santa Rosa. Every dollar will be part of an annual report to the community. Every dollar will be audited.
Thank you. All right, let's get a few more numbers out there for this group. Property tax, Scott. What percentage of property tax stays with the city?
I'm going to play the hits here for a moment as a local government CFO. And I'm going to say, again, we said pensions. I'll bring up another fun thing today, Prop 13. So Prop 13, first let me just get out there, is as popular today as the day it passed. It is going nowhere, and I know that. We all know that. But what's really core to Prop 13 is there is a technical understanding that everyone needs to understand, is that Santa Rosa does not get treated the same as everywhere else. We keep far less of our property tax than the average agency in the state of California, and far less than our neighboring agencies here within the county. For every dollar that I spend as a Santa Rosa homeowner, the city receives 11.7 cents, with less than 12% of property taxes. We would expect that percentage to be much more like 16 to 18%. There are agencies within Sonoma County that keep 20%. That is locked in, frankly, forever. Again, Prop 13 is not changing. But the why of that is because back in the 70s when Prop 13 passed, Santa Rosa was known as a very low property tax area. It was experiencing very large growth, very large other revenue sources, and it was beneficial to the community to go out and say, hey, we're going to keep our property tax really low. That is a financial structure decision that was made in the 70s that has only gotten worse and worse and worse for the impact on us. It has grown. That is why we are so dependent on sales tax. Again, coming back to the why are we here today talking about sales tax? It's because we can't impact property tax, and our property tax rate is so low, frankly, against other agencies. Again, it's part of this why that's so important. That is part of this why question.
Thank you very much, Scott Wagner. All right, so we're looking at Tanya and Gerard. I'm going to put you on the spot here. It's similar figures in Roanoke Park. Do you guys know from a sales tax and property tax perspective what percentage are actually coming back to the city? Do you want to highlight those? All right, there's some
No,
discussion.
yes, property tax, no. I can tell you, we take in $14 million a year in property tax. I don't know the exact percentage of what we get. It's probably a little bit better than what Santa Rosa is doing. With regards to sales tax, the state takes 6% right off the top of the 7.5. Then we've got all the various measures, and a lot of those don't have return to source, equations. So, we receive about $1.25 from 1.25% from everything that we take in sales tax.
Thank you. Windsor, you want to say a couple words?
I think we're a little bit higher on our property tax, but what we have in Windsor is we have a significant amount of the people who live in Windsor own their houses, and they have owned them for a very long time, so their property tax is low. And so, that's one of the issues that we have is I think it's like 76% of the people who live in Windsor own and have owned for a long time. So those have been stagnant in Windsor. But going back real quick to retail leakage, we have a significant amount of retail leakage in Windsor because we have people who go down to Santa Rosa to shop. So we lose a significant amount of our revenue down to Santa Rosa, and that's something that we're actively working on to try to bring more retail to Windsor so that we don't lose that retail leakage time and time again down to Santa Rosa.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to report that Napa and also Healdsburg are also losing sales tax to Santa Rosa because they're coming down to our city to shop. All right, we're going to go to Al Lerma from Matote. Speaking of another success of the last 10 years, think about the difference in Sebastopol Road now as opposed to 10 years ago. And in large part, that's due to Al and Matote, as well as Sasson, as well as Tierra de Rosas. The development there has been incredible. Al, what's your question?
It's actually just a comment. I want to give some of the city staff a shout out. We got pushed out by an affordable housing project a little over a year ago, so we had to do locations. We had to do very quickly, and if you know our site, it's kind of a big footprint. We found a site, we had some challenges, but we worked with the city staff. The site wasn't exactly rezoned to what it needed to be. We went to the city economic development team. They worked with putting the site on a rezoning with a general plan amendment that probably saved us $15,000 or $20,000. We had to get we had a temporary use permit. We had to get a new operating permit. We were looking at a cost of $10,000 probably there. The staff streamlined the process. It was less than $1,000. We're still going through that process, but they cut the price from $10,000 to under $1,000. And then lastly, the site shows the chief mentioned 4 years ago at our old location, we had like a 4-hour site show one night, if you can imagine that. And it was just, a mess out there. So the chief really attacked that problem of side shows. He worked with other jurisdictions. He put up barriers on the corners of the main intersection in Roseland on Sebastopol Road. Guess what? There haven't been any side shows, I don't think, Chief, in 2 or 3 years there, probably now. So I just wanted to point out they are working with small businesses. We have challenges still, but the staff is working cooperatively to help small business.
Thank you. We should give a shout out to then Mayor Chris Rogers for also being pretty aggressive in prosecuting the sideshow perpetrators. We had some new city ordinances. I'm going to go to Gary Lenz first. Gary?
Mr. Wagner, I've heard you talk before about the mountain of pension debt that we've all seen coming for, 10, 15 years at least? Being that this was so foreseeable, this mountain of debt that I think you said peaks in about 4 years and then starts to come down, I had my son using AI, you'll be pleased to know, it wasn't done by me, but he used AI to analyze the budgets over the last 3 years. And one of the things he found is that police and fire went up faster than inflation, 2.5% per year, 7.4% over the 3 years. Take us inside those rooms when you're negotiating with those groups, and knowing that the downside of this is that you're going to be letting cops and firefighters go and browning out stations and that sort of thing. It feels like you're perhaps balancing the budget on the backs of taxpayers for these other decisions that are made. Take us inside those rooms, and how do you bring that to them and say, we need you to give more so that we don't have to go to these extremes?
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Along the pension line, again, one more time, and I can talk about pensions the whole time, I'll be honest with y'all. We have addressed that peak of the mountain. So we're there. We were able to cut that mountain. We've created a mesa. So we've created a tunnel on that mountain to address where we're at. I love the fact that you are encouraging your son to dive into municipal finance. I'm thrilled to hear that. There's at least 2 crazy people in the world. That's great. But the core of your question is critical. One, when it comes to how do we approach this from negotiations perspective without getting myself in trouble. All of our labor unions have agreed to pay extra towards pensions. So both of our public safety unions, both POA and our Firefighters Association, pay more than they legally have to fund their pensions. That's one, okay? The second part of that question is, we've taken an overall city look, again, of why has this happened? We have not just sat back and go, we have a problem. Why did this problem occur? Over the past year, we completed a complete compensation and classification study throughout the city, and the fact is that we are behind our competitor agency employers, anywhere from 15-ish% across the board. So we don't just look at negotiations and say, hey, it's what happens in the room. It's really what happens outside the room. It happens outside the room really comparing us to everyone else, that we can have a fair approach towards moving forward with our negotiations. Let's call a spade though. We do need to pay our employees in a way that we're gonna be able to retain and recruit them. We deliver our services through people. A lot of those people show up through the chief's groups, where the community needs them most, and at a critical moment when they need them most. We have to be able to remain competitive and pay folks a wage where they're gonna look for this career. The frank fact is that when we look at the job market, we don't have as many candidates as we used to back in the day. We don't have 2,000 people showing up at 7:30 in the morning to take a test to become a firefighter. We have to be aggressive to go out to the market now to be able to fill these positions. So when we look at the overall job market, I think we can safely say through data that we don't have a overpaying employees problem at the moment. I think that's fair, and it's clear through our facts.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you emphasized that we are looking at the data on that. I saw head nodding from both Windsor and from Rohnert Park. It's the same situation over there, I'm assuming, in terms of your public safety salaries. All right, wonderful. And when we're talking pension reform, one thing to be very clear about, we're talking about pre-2013 pensions. All right, so when we're climbing pension mountain, that's true for all of our cities. We're not talking about the pensions from employees who were hired post-2013. It is the pre-statewide reform. That is 99% of our pension restructuring was for those pre-2013 pensions. Okay, so that was a problem that existed before us, but we're dealing with it. Jacques, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. There you go. First of all, I really appreciate what you guys are doing and what you're putting toward this. Secondly, I haven't heard anything about where your state and federal sources of funding are. And secondly, is there any way to go after more of that, especially from the state where it's friendly?
I guess that's one way to describe our state partners. Thank you very much. Who wants to handle that question?
I'll try to be careful on this one. We are very concerned. We're very concerned at the federal level, especially on the human services side. And from a city's perspective, although we don't have a human services department, at the end of the day, we will always say very biasedly that all these problems eventually end up on the street, and the street is our responsibility. We're very concerned over Help Me Jason and HB1, right? The loss of the funding of human services. We have been very aggressive and very successful as an organization, really since the fire, of attaining federal funding. We go about it the right way. Dan can go on for quite a while about his successful federal funding. Dan, you want to bring up a couple of hits that we have?
Yeah, we've had great luck in restructuring some of our grant applications and tailoring our formula funds towards what both this community wants, but also what the state and federal administrations want. And that is a very narrow needle to try to thread. Frankly, with respect to the federal government, we are struggling right now because we hear something one week and we hear something different the next week. That's tied to especially that discretionary funding where we're applying for grants and getting them, and then that gets jerked around with. But it's even true of our formula funding, which is money that we count on, that they are changing the rules midstream about how we use, both for streets, but especially for our transit service. Our city bus team right now, the finance team, we have contingency plans and spreadsheets that would drive you nuts if you saw them in terms of the different scenarios that we're planning for, because we just don't know one week to the next. We hear from staff at the Federal Transit Administration about what they know and what they're telling us is legally in play. They're also telling us behind the scenes on their private cell phones about what is actually happening in Washington, D.C. And they're two very different stories that they're giving to us publicly on the record and privately behind the scenes.
Thank you. Yes, and Chuck, to your question, it's important to highlight that the city of Santa Rosa has 3 different lawsuits against the federal administration right now, all aimed at allowing us to continue to apply for grants. And then at the federal level with the HR1 cuts is dumping an enormous amount of liability back down on the state and then eventually on the county, which is going to impact us. So that the uncertainties with respect to what our responsibilities are, what our revenues are going to be as a result of the federal uncertainty are enormous. All right, I'm looking at the time, and I'm told we got probably about 5 more minutes. Let's do a quick round here with the different cities, just to again underline what the choice is. And in Santa Rosa, it's really clear. We have 2 paths. We have this path of a tax increase, a tax continuation and then increase, which allows us to solve our current structural deficit and maintain and provide the services that our communities want. Otherwise, we're looking at likely significant cuts. And just very quickly, 30 seconds literally, Chief Westro, what just an example of what those cuts look like from the fire department perspective?
Sure, thanks, Mayor. So for the fire department, what is forecasted right now is if we do not have additional revenue, we will not be able to maintain those core services. We have trimmed, there wasn't really any fat on the bone, but we've cut bone off bone at this point. So as of July 1st, 2027, we're going to have to cut another $2.5 million out of the budget, 8 people, which is an engine company. So we'll be permanently closing 1 engine company out of our 10. And then in 2030, it's projected we're going to have to cut 18 positions, another $5.2 million, something like that. We're going to have to close 1 of our 2 truck companies, and we're going to have to, 6 months into the budget, we're going to have to close another engine company. So potentially, if this doesn't pass, this is educational, this is factual, not advocating, we're going to have to close 2 engine companies and a truck company in the next 3 years, and that will be permanent closures, not brownouts.
Thank you. Just over the facts here, Chief Cregan, again, 30 seconds. What kinds of impacts might we be looking at?
The impacts are going to be real, and we talked about the staffing levels being less than 1999. Our projection, so by next year, by mid-year budget, January of 2027, 11 more officers cut from the Santa Rosa Police Department. If looking for the future till 2030, up to 24 police officers. What's going to happen is we're going to lose our specialty teams. When I became chief, I brought back our gang crimes team. We're driving down and eliminating violent gang crime in the city of Santa Rosa. You lose those things. Our special enforcement team, which took almost 100 guns off the street, just not 1 team last year. That's driving down violence in our community. That's making it safer to go downtown. That's making the economic vitality of our community stronger. Those teams are going to get cut. Our domestic violence sexual assault, which investigated hundreds of sexual assaults last year, those teams are going to get reduced, and we're going to feel the impacts. When you call 911, you just have to ask, how quickly do I want a police officer to be able to respond to my emergency? And we have to. I live in Santa Rosa. I've lived here since I was 12 years old. It's the community that I want for my daughters, for my wife, to make sure that we have both for police, the same thing with our fire response. We need these resources, and we just have to ask the question, how quickly do you want a police officer or firefighter to be there when you call 911? And the impacts are going to be significant if we don't see some of these revenue-generating ideas coming forward.
Thank you. All right, let's start with Windsor first. So again, very quickly, just the kinds of impacts that the ballot measure would potentially lead to if it doesn't pass at the ballot box.
Great, thank you. So the town of Windsor put together actually a Plan B budget to show the community what would happen if we didn't have a tax measure. And that is an additional 15% of cuts to our general fund in order to try to shore up that structural deficit, which is, at this point, since we've already made 10% cuts, now comes into significant cuts in staff, permanent cuts in staffing, reduction. We won't be able to do our Thursday night concerts, we won't be able to do our Tuesday night movies, and then it starts cutting into our parks and rec, shutting down parks and things of that nature. So it really will be significant cuts that the community will see and feel. We've tried to do more with less to this point, but we will no longer be able to do more with less.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Gerard, Winter Park.
Yeah, part of the problem here is that it's a moving target, right? As costs continue to increase and revenue remains flat or decreases, you have to just do all kinds of things. We just announced in Winter Park that we're closing the pools for December, January, and February. That's one thing that we're going to have to do. Need to save money. So there's a lot of things that are going to be on the chopping block. We also have done 10% cutbacks across all departments. We'll have to do that again at least. And you'll see more layoffs and you'll see more frozen positions. The unfortunate thing in Roanoke Park is that 5 of those frozen positions are in public safety right now. I don't have a deputy chief. We don't have a lot of management in Roanoke Park Public Safety. So these cuts are really going to start to hurt the ability of Roanoke Park to deliver public safety. We had to pull our school resource officer off that because we needed her for traffic, right? And so these things, it's a moving target. So the answer they give you today may not be the answer that you're going to get 6 months from now because conditions are going to change. And just to give you an idea of the consternation that we face with regards to federal funding, I represent you on the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District. We got an Inflation Reduction Act grant through Nancy Pelosi's office for $450 million to do a seismic retrofit of a bridge that was built in 1937, and he tried to pull it. We had to change all of our initiatives on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a number of other things to preserve the grant. In Roanoke Park, we had a BRIC grant, Building Resilient Communities, $7 million grant to prevent flooding in my town. Gone, pulled. We were halfway through the environmental work on it, and they just pulled the grant, no explanation. So the pain that we are feeling from above is real, and if it continues, it's really going to be a pinch point for a lot of these local jurisdictions.
Thank you. All right, to sum up, before I give it back to Tani, the consistent message you've heard today, a couple different things. First of all, let's go back to the positive for just a second. There is some great economic development news in the area right now. We focused on Santa Rosa, we talked about whether it's the Montgomery Village or some of our other commercial areas. We didn't even talk about Roanoke Park downtown and what that's going to do for Santa Rosa, for the entire 101 corridor. Windsor has similar projects underway, the airport, etc. Like there are a lot of green shoots in the county right now for the first time in a while. We fought our way through the fires, we fought our way through the pandemic, and now people are coming into this area. Businesses are coming in saying we want to invest major capital here. We see it. But we've all got these budget issues, and it's not all the city's fault. We talked a bit about some of the structural issues that are in play. We've talked about what we've done internally to deal with those issues. And what you've heard from each of us is that we are willing to cut more. If that's what the community wants, there are other cuts we can make, but each of our cities has collectively realized that we don't think our residents want us to make those cuts. And we just want to be out and give our residents the choice of either telling us, hey, go back and cut, that's fine, we understand the consequences and we will live with that, or no, we are willing to tax ourselves, and we're all taxing ourselves, and we want to shore up the budgets and maintain our services. That's the choice that each of our 3 cities is offering to our residents, and we are thankful for the chance to come back today and to present this picture to this group, which is one of the most influential groups in each of our cities. And we hope that you will continue to lean in and give us your thoughts, and help us steer our cities in whatever direction we ultimately decide to go. And with that, Tani, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you very much.
Teams here is amazing, so appreciate your guys' efforts. So great job on that. And if you enjoyed this topic, September 4th, we have Senator Caban coming in to talk about state legislation, state budgets, how it affects Sonoma County. And then on November 4th, we have Brian Sobel Communications, a political strategist, who will kind of follow up after the November ballot. So couple things, if you enjoyed today, you're not a member, if you choose to join in the next 24 hours, even if somebody else paid for you, we will refund you the cost of today's meeting. So think about that. We are pushing very hard. Where to be in the room, you're going to have to be a member soon. So be thinking about that and take on that opportunity for a discount. Samantha's back there, and she can definitely help you with that. I've got to also do a shout out for the fair. I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. So fair starts Friday and Sunday, well, Sunday the 16th. And just, you know, Chief Cragen, I just got back from a fair up in Oregon. I went for 10 days. The law enforcement officer ate corn dogs. And we all funded the 4-H program with the number of corn dogs he ate. And he got to 50 in 10 days. So we could do funnel cakes, we could do curly fries. The mayor, that's a great idea. Oh, you gotta run a half marathon? Yeah. Well, if you want to make sure he's behind you, push him to do this corn dog challenge or this thing. So thanks everybody for being here. Go out and enjoy a great day.